Welcome to TrialSite News Weekly Roundup. On today's episode, we talk about President Donald Trump. Did he participate in the REGN-COV2 trial? We'll discuss. Followed by France-based Medivation, which initiates ivermectin clinical trial targeting COVID-19 with the prophylactic strategy. And finally, a fake investigator going to prison for 28 years. 2 Washington State trial site operations duped sponsors and CRO. All of this starts now. Reports were that when President Donald Trump was treated for COVID-19 at Walter Reed Medical Center, that he received investigational drugs including Regneron's REGN-COV2. Of course, investigational means that a drug is not approved by the U.S. FDA for a specific indication. Presently, REGN-COV2 is only available in a clinical trial with explicit inclusion and exclusion criteria. Now, TrialSite News wasn't certain that the President of the United States fit into the study protocol parameters. So while it unfolded, our question was, did the President of the United States somehow rapidly get approved to participate, or did he secure some kind of compassionate use access to the drug? Apparently, physician Sean Conley released a statement that the President of the United States received a single 8-gram dose of REGN-COV2 after his positive SARS-CoV-2 diagnosis by the White House. Now, Reuters obtained a statement from Regneron that the company received a request from the President's physician to provide a dose of the REGN-COV2 cocktail, an investigational drug that is part of a multiple clinical trials. Now, TrialSite News has written extensively about the various trials here. Recently, Regneron shared early data revealing that the treatment appears to be reducing viral levels and bettering symptoms. REGN-COV2 is not authorized for commercial use, and it can only be used for research at this point and/or if an FDA compassionate use exception is granted. Now, for more on TrialSite News' reporting of REGN-COV2, you can see our first investigation into this somewhat unorthodox program, starting with a brand new trial site organization in Mesa, Arizona, set up just for this study. Now, rather than starting with a traditional Phase 1 safety trial, the company established, in accordance with the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, a sentinel safety cohort, both hospitalized and non-hospitalized. Apparently, a data safety monitoring committee gave the green light based on early data, even while the data was still blinded, reported a Regneron spokesperson. Now, TrialSite News has to share a thanks to Regneron for their responsiveness and transparency. From our experience, when TrialSite News analysts have a question, Regneron has had one of the most responsive media relations spokespersons that we've ever encountered. They have been candid and forthright with our questions about the nature of the Regneron monoclonal antibody program. Now, Regneron has secured at least $450 million to support the clinical development and secure upfront purchase of the investigational product. Now, the President of the United States also received remdesivir, which is available via emergency use access, and dexamethasone. Now, for this latter corticosteroid, the President received against the national guidelines, under which it should only be administered if an individual's COVID-19-related infection has progressed to a severity level involving need for mechanical breathing support, i.e. a ventilator. Now, this is per the recovery study in the UK that we had reported on. The whole story over at Walter Reed raised a few critical questions about the combination of drugs and therapies he received. Now, for this next story, we're going to talk about Medivation. They treated the first patient in a clinical trial aimed at validating the safety of continuous administration of ivermectin in an oral form as a prophylactic treatment. Several long-acting injectable formulations based on Medivation's BEPO technology are simultaneously being tested in vivo. The France-based company plans for a 1-month active injectable prophylactic treatment, which, hopefully for regulatory development before the end of 2020. The company seeks to file for market authorization as early as 2021. Now, Medivation suggests that universal vaccination remains hypothetical, and hence a preventative treatment must be an essential factor in all scenarios, reported the Montpellier, France-based company. The company focuses on a third path to treat and prevent COVID-19 with its BEPO technology, which has already attracted prestigious partners such as the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation for past research efforts involving research and development for malaria treatment in the development world, for example. Now, the MDC-TTG program's objective is to protect from COVID-19 with a subcutaneous injection of a 1-month active treatment of ivermectin, a molecule already widely used in other indications. Since the beginning of the pandemic, clues about its potential efficacy against COVID-19 have piled up. TrialSite News has systematically and methodically chronicled accumulating real-world data pointing towards possible evidence of the ivermectin's efficacy against COVID-19. Now, this prevention strategy, called pre-exposure prophylaxis, or PrEP, is similar to the one already used against HIV. People are protected for the duration of treatment. It has demonstrated its efficacy and the need for long-acting injectable treatments, the only ones to guarantee the continuity of protection. Now, a brief reminder, although billions was spent on HIV vaccination research and development, one was never unfortunately found. Hence, this third way. MedinCell's CEO commented that we keep focused on developing the third path against COVID-19, prevention, with our BEPO technology, which has already attracted prestigious partners thanks to its large-scale deployment potential. He went on to say that our program against COVID-19 is a bit like David versus Goliath, but we have already demonstrated the strength of our alliance model, which allows us to collaborate with the best partners. And so, a first clinical trial to accelerate the development of the long-acting injectable MDC-TTG uses MedinCell's BEPO technology. 3 products based on BEPO technology are already in clinical trials here in the United States, the most advanced one at the end of Phase 3. The program aims at providing an injectable treatment in the form of pre-filling syringe ready to use within 24-month stability at room temperature. Now, BEPO technology will allow the formation of a small subcutaneous depot, fully bioreabsorbable at the time of injection. It will act as a mini pump that releases ivermectin regularly until it disappears completely. So this clinical trial, recently initiated, aims at validating its safety when taken regularly in oral form over 4 weeks to simulate the continuous release of the active ingredient by a long-acting injectable. The current clinical trial will gradually evaluate 3 increasing doses by daily administration over 4 weeks and 3 successive cohorts of healthy volunteers. It will serve as a solid foundation for the regulatory development of the long-acting injectable formulation and its potential mass deployment. So let's take a brief overview of the study. It is a randomized, double-blind, exploratory Phase 1 trial assessing the pharmacokinetic profile, safety, and tolerability of a continuous daily dosing regimen of ivermectin in healthy volunteers. For doses, there are 3 doses of ivermectin tested gradually. For participants, there are 3 successive cohorts of 8 healthy volunteers, 1 cohort per dose. Now, for administration, it's daily oral, ivermectin or placebo for 4 weeks for each cohort. Now, the clinical trial authorization is by the MHRA, which is the Medicines and Healthcare Product Regulatory Agency in the UK. So, what happens if it is approved? In a favorable scenario, MedinCell will apply for market authorization before the end of 2021. The validation of ivermectin's efficacy by the numerous studies in progress and the persistence of the pandemic should allow MDC-TTG to benefit from an accelerated regulatory pathway for clinical development. The large-scale production capacity set up as part of the joint venture formed by MedinCell with Corbion will enable the large-scale supply of the biocompatible polymers required for the production of tens of millions of doses. In addition, several advanced discussions are underway with public and private partners to fund this program so that it has no impact on MedinCell's cash visibility. Now, for a little background on MedinCell, it is based in France, and it's a clinical-stage pharmaceutical company that develops a portfolio of long-acting injectable products in various therapeutic areas by combining its proprietary BEPO technology with active ingredients already known and marketed. Through the controlled and extended release of the active pharmaceutical ingredient, MedinCell makes medical treatments more efficient, particularly thanks to improved compliance, i.e. compliance with medical prescriptions, and to a significant reduction in the quantity of medication required as part of a one-off chronic treatment. The BEPO technology makes it possible to control and guarantee the regular delivery of a drug at the optimal therapeutic doses for several days, weeks, or months, starting from the subcutaneous or local injection of a similar deposit of a few millimeters. Fully bioresorbable. Now, MedinCell currently employs more than 130 people representing over 25 different nationalities. And of course, we'll be keeping you posted on this study as it continues to develop. Now, just over a year ago, TrialSite News introduced the exploits of the fake principal investigator named Sani Anwar, owner of what turned out to be an illicit trial site operations known as Zane Research and Mid-Columbia Research, to a much wider audience. Industry publications and online media, for the most part, ignored the story. It is as if the egregious criminal breach raised a collective industry embarrassment. The 41-year-old finally had justice served, 47 counts of fraud and drug-related charges, and 28 years in prison. Back in November, TrialSite reported that the defendant was found guilty of defrauding pharmaceutical companies out of several $1 million as they entered into contracts with his deceptive trial site operations for conducting FDA-approved clinical trials. Now, why the pharmaceutical company sponsors or their contract research organizations didn't identify the red flags earlier to stop this fraud cannot be certain. And for that matter, Anwar slipped through cracks as far as FDA scrutiny. Suffice it to say, some very large and sophisticated pharmaceutical companies and at least one prominent CRO, as well as regulators, were completely duped, and in the process, clinical trial participants were put in harm's way. Now, when TrialSite News first commented on this story, we said that Hollywood could not have created a worse character, a crooked, manipulative actor that established elaborate schemes to defraud clinical sponsors of millions of dollars, place patients at grave risk, and ruin the reputations of innocent doctors. Employees who dared ask questions were bullied and threatened. Now, TrialSite suggested that Mr. Anwar represented a real-life mix of the Goodfellas and Catch Me If You Can in the world of clinical trials investigation. The Richland, Washington-based clinical investigator received millions of dollars during a multi-year run, where he established what amounted to a fraudulent clinical trial centers to illegally run clinical trials involving what were, in some cases, life-saving drugs, not to mention a controlled substances. Now that's right, Anwar managed to secure himself access to a controlled substance license from the federal government, and he eventually gave many research trial participants doses of the highly addictive drug. So where was the national industry outrage here? Now, as reported recently in the local press by David Mann with Yaktree News, Anwar spent from 2013 to 2018 operating sham trial site operations, including Zane Research, as I mentioned earlier, and Mid-Columbia Research. The individual, originally from Pakistan, set up the fraudulent businesses and consequently posed as a legitimate trial site operation to manipulate and deceive pharmaceutical companies and their CROs into signing up and conducting clinical trials in the Tri-Cities area of Washington state. Now let's fast forward to the present. U.S. Attorney General William Hyslop took the time to provide some clarity on the resolution of the Anwar case, noting, "Every day Americans rely on the data from clinical research trials to keep us safe from deadly diseases and dangerous side effects. The ongoing COVID-19 pandemic and the vital ongoing clinical trials currently being conducted with regard to therapeutic treatments and vaccines remind us every day how critical clinical research trials are and how important it is that they be conducted honestly and reliably. Injecting fraudulent and corrupt data into the system is an egregious breach of the trust and faith that we all place in those who perform these vitally important trials." Now, we here at TrialSite News want to take the time to thank law enforcement, including the Department of Justice, and all those involved in stopping this very dangerous situation. Now, to keep up with the latest story in the Yaktree News, you can visit their website, or you can click on the link below, which will take you to this story, and all available links will be listed there. And that brings our episode to a close. As always, thank you for joining us for this episode of the Weekly Roundup. From TrialSite News, I'm Adrian, and we will see you next time.